Hi, and welcome to the podcast channel for podcastmybusiness.com.au and also for video at contentmadeeasy.com.au. And today we're joined by Ryan McMillan. How are you, Ryan?
I'm really great, Tony. Thanks for having me on today.
Excellent. Now, you have an interesting website address, so I'll let you read that out.
So it's atlasdigital.co/au.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And today we're talking about AI, and in particular, reputational risk with AI. And we were talking just before about AI slop, which is becoming a term. And yeah, I do use a lot of AI, and a lot of listeners will use AI. Probably a lot of them getting into it because AI is still pretty new. I don't like the term AI. I would like to say generative AI, which is the correct factual way of talking about it. What is generative AI?
Generative AI really is just the use of an LLM to produce a text result. Simplified in a big way, it's almost like a high predictive text machine. I think when most of us have used tools like ChatGPT or Gemini by now, but for those that haven't, you type something in and it will answer you in a way that definitely feels like it's pretty human.
Yeah, exactly right. And I know all those people think about, oh no, we're going to get Terminator or whatever. No, it doesn't mean that.
No, it doesn't.
Cool, okay. So you've been doing some surveys and so forth around reputational risk and the like. Do you want to take us through some of that? Yeah, you're right. Lots of people have used ChatGPT and Gemini and all the others. And I like Perplexity. Good for checking accuracy, especially when you're using AI. Check the AI. And Perplexity will help you to do that to keep you accurate. But everyone's talking about using AI, but you're saying there's a risk. What is the risk?
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about using Perplexity to check results because a fun fact is that about 80% of people say that they don't actually second guess an AI recommendation. And I guess that ties in perfectly to what we're talking about today. There's a real reputational risk that exists for businesses in any LLM result. And the reality is what we're calling it is like an AI reputation risk. We've surveyed like a number of our clients and found that up to 70% of them actually have some sort of false piece of information about them in an LLM result. As I said, if people are really trusting that, they're not going back and second guessing it. If you've got the wrong information about you in a business, you can understand how that can have sort of all sorts of implications for your company.
Yeah, okay. So you're using an acronym LLM, which is large language model. Can you just define that for us?
Yeah, an LLM is really a tool that a consumer can use to ask a question and get an answer. Previously, we had search engines like Google, and I guess in 2026 onwards, it's all about LLMs, which is using something like ChatGPT or Gemini to type in what it is you're looking for. And it's more conversational as opposed to a sort of a static response, which you get from a search engine. It's something that you can engage with on an ongoing basis.
Exactly right. So what are there such things as the common mistakes that AI and LLM are getting wrong?
I think it's not so much about common mistakes, but it's just about the speed at which the LLMs are being updated at the moment is quite frequent. So typically in about 2 weeks, you can see results being influenced by certain marketing activities designed to update things in LLMs. The problem with that is combine that with the training data that they've got, which essentially is just billions of data points across the web. You can imagine how if that data is incorrect in a very quick way, you can actually end up with like the wrong information out there about your business that's factually inaccurate and would definitely have like commercial implications for you if it was the wrong data. We've been talking to a number of our clients, done some of our own audits ourselves, and I'm sure we'll cover a bit of that during this interview as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll go back to, 80% of businesses don't check AI accuracy. Do businesses know that they need to check it more, or why are they so trusting?
It's funny that you ask that, and I think it's a great question. The reality is, as I said, it's like a conversational experience, and there's been all sorts of tests around sentience and intelligence about LLMs to figure out if they are really human or understand you. I think the reality, whether they are or not, and in fact they're not based on those tests, is that it feels like they are. It feels like you're talking to a friend. The use cases of an LLM aren't just like, where's the best pizza place? It can also be people sharing their therapeutic problems, getting advice about life decisions, which university should I go and study at, and all sorts of things like that. Because of that, you build a pretty big amount of trust. And actually, we see similar conversion rates up there with sort of word of mouth or brand searches coming through from LLM results through to websites, which really just sort of displays that people put a lot of credit and weight into what an LLM recommends to you.
Yeah. Look, I've been having knee issues and I've been using ChatGPT and I think it's Claude to get some information about that. And I keep saying to it, now don't forget, don't record any of my information because you might do some financial information and what have you. I just want to tell everybody, don't trust AI. Make sure you keep saying to it, don't record any of my information, don't use my information.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely worthwhile to consider what will be done with the data that you decide to put into an LLM. Different companies have different policies around this, but those, of course, are subject to change as well. And it is a little bit of a wild west. We know there's not much regulation out there right now. Probably a topic for a different day, but yeah, it does pay to be careful.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely come back and look at regulation and see what's happened to all that data because we remember with Google and all that sea of data, and now here we are all these years later, still don't know what happened to it. So if most businesses are wrong or missing, then who actually wins?
Well, I think it's the businesses that get lucky in some ways. Like we've got a client in the fintech space and we audited their activity and found that only about 44% of the information out there about them was accurate. These aren't necessarily lies. It can also be things that are sort of expired now. So, for example, if you're a business that used to offer certain types of services and you don't offer those anymore, it might be the case that an LLM is still representing that you do offer those services or you don't. And another example would be your pricing could have shifted quite considerably, but it's surfacing old pricing when comparing you to a competitor. The reality is that has huge commercial impacts. If we know that people are placing the weight of a friend's recommendation on this, for them to read the wrong pricing might lead them to make a totally different purchase decision, which is, really bad for your business and for the consumer at the end of the day.
So is this the shift from being found to being understood?
That's an interesting question. I think being understood is the scope of being understood is really about what all the information out there on the web about you is, and then how much you maintain its accuracy. And I think what it's about is really ensuring that you're aware of how you're being spoken about on the internet. Then you're doing what's in your control to ensure that the right information is getting out about your business.
So how can someone check how they've been represented today?
Yeah, well, Atlas, for example, has like auditing tools that we use, but there's several other ways to audit, like other tools to audit your website with different tools online. One simple way would be to just pop up your chosen LLM or use ChatGPT or something if you haven't used anything before, and simply ask it, in my, insert category of business that you're working in, what's the best product to choose if I'm looking for running shoes? And then if your product is showing up or not, that's a pretty good indication of how you're being surfaced. And then which one should I choose as a way to go a layer deeper on that and understand how our LLM's actually talking about me. So I would say for the everyday person, the quickest way would really just be to do your own research.
Yeah, exactly right. So do you have a preference for which LLM and which ones are more accurate and which ones are best to use?
I think every LLM has different pros and cons. I probably wouldn't speak to which is best. The reality is that these companies are moving very fast and their models are being updated frequently. One that I might say today might not be the case next week. So I think it's really just figuring out what's best for your own preferences.
Yeah, absolutely. And are they still doing, I remember when it first started off, it was like data that was like a year old or whatever it is. How close is it to now, the data that's being used?
Yeah, it's funny how quickly things have changed. Certainly, my interactions with LLMs and my understanding is that the data, is, in many cases, is pretty much up to date. You can ask about news stories from yesterday. Much like a search engine, LLMs are essentially crawling the internet in order to find information. Some websites don't let them crawl, but others, the majority do. What that means is that they're able to actually surface up information pretty quickly.
Okay, so I'm just looking at a future of where everything is written by LLMs and ChatGPT and AI and the like, and they're posting it on the internet, and then they're searching for information, and then so does that lead to slop begetting slop begetting slop?
I think it poses a really big opportunity for businesses, right? Because what the word slop implies is poor quality, and obviously the inverse of that is great quality. And so if you're out there focused on building, great quality pieces of content, that looks like being a trusted authority, offering up first party data that other people couldn't actually access or have, unique opinions and viewpoints. All of these types of things are going to play a really crucial role in what defines like good content versus bad content. Certainly, one of the phrases I like to use is that you should be trying to add to the ecosystem as opposed to echo it. So that's a good way to just sense check what you're doing with anything you're putting online.
Yeah, exactly. And just to clarify for people that Google and all the search engines have no issue at all with AI generated content.
Yeah, currently they don't. There was actually an update in 2024, I believe, from Google around AI trying to sort of target low quality content websites. I think that any search engine would be remiss to punish the use of AI because that would imply people wouldn't use it. And I think, of course, they're going to. Really, what they're talking about now is just driving high quality content. They just released recently a topic on commodity content, which is really just to say, add something to your content, don't make it the same as everything else, and that's how you're going to win.
Yeah, exactly right. Wherever you can, make it as unique as possible. So, do you have any specific tips and tricks that businesses should have a look at?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just to try to get a sense of what information's out there about you, and if there is like significantly wrong information, actually try to contact those websites and sort it out. I'll give you an example. If you're a software product, let's say, you might have had pricing 3 years ago that no longer applies, and there might be a software review website that's written about you at that time and they haven't updated it. That might mean that if an LLM has read that site and rates that site enough to be heavily influenced by it, that you might then have the wrong pricing surfaced in an LLM result yourself. A lot of the instances, as you can see in this example, it's not on purpose that this information is inaccurate. It's actually like a time-based inaccuracy. So simply reaching out to websites through their contact page or privacy policy often shows you a way to contact them and ask them to correct it is probably the best thing that you can do. The second thing is just making sure that your content on your own website is really accurate and gives enough information about what you're doing. If you leave it for the rest of the web to talk about you, then you obviously miss a big opportunity to sort of control the narrative yourself and set the record straight. So I think that would be a big thing. Likewise, reviews is something that comes into things quite heavily. So it's important to just get a real sense of what sort of reviews are out there on your website, about your business on the internet, but also to get your own review systems in place as well and make sure that people are using them. So setting those mechanisms up when you're selling a product to get positive reviews to reinforce that you've got a great product.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
The main thing I think that's important is just that you go out there kind of in earnest to do the best thing that you can. So the reality is if you talk positively about your product and your brand, but then you also put a lot of effort into building a great product, then I think you've already sort of won half the battle. If you then go and follow some of those other recommendations about auditing, reviews, then I think you should be away flying.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's the thing is that you still need people, you still need information, you still want to interact with the people, use AI cautiously. And I think, like I mentioned before, I have a 22-step process that I feed in when I use AI, just to get it exactly where I want it to be.
Yeah, it is certainly a game of refinement. The outputs are always different. It's a probabilistic system, not a deterministic one, which basically just means you're thereabouts going to get a similar answer, but it's never going to be the exact same. Because of that, it really matters what you put into an LLM to determine the results that you also get out of it.
Yeah, and I want to give everyone a bit of a challenge. Next time you use an LLM, like ChatGPT or what have you, ask the same question twice and see what happens.
Yeah, Tony, that's actually a really fun game to play. Something else to sort of look out for is that when you are getting the answers, an LLM can be pretty darn confident about what they're saying and pretty convincing, even if they're wrong. Hallucination is a real thing. That's not really what we've covered today in terms of the reputation breach. It's more how they've been trained. But hallucination is a whole other issue in itself within an LLM. And yeah, it can be pretty entertaining to sort of see what an LLM will try to convince you is the right answer when in fact it's nothing of that sort.
Yeah. And again, another tip that I've got is that ask the LLM for its source of its information, how it came to that conclusion.
Yeah, that's another great example. And again, when they do that, make sure that you go and check the website because sometimes those website URLs don't actually exist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Great. Look, thanks very much for your time, Ryan.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Tony. Have a good afternoon.